Hi guys, welcome back to Robbie D's Kitchen. I'm Robin and today I'll be showing you guys how I made this meal. So I made some tender roast chicken, seafood black bean rice, fried plantain, and coleslaw. So let's get into the video. I'm gonna start off with my chicken. Now I am making a spatchcock chicken, so basically that means it's gonna be without the backbone, so I'm just gonna be cutting that out. You can do this with kitchen shears, but I was testing out this new chef knife I got, so I decided to use that, and I'm just cutting out the bones that I didn't really want there. You can also cut off like the extra skin that's kind of hanging from the chicken if you want. I ended up doing that later on before I seasoned it. After doing all of this, I did go ahead and wash my chicken off with lime, vinegar, and water. Now to season my chicken, I am going to be using my seasoning mixture that I used in my last roast chicken video. So if you haven't seen that, go check it out. I will have it linked down below so that you can get all of the measurements and seasonings used. Now you want to make sure that you're rubbing underneath the skin and getting the front and back of the chicken. Now I'm just going to shake it up and let it marinate in the fridge overnight. Here's the chicken the next day. Now you don't have to marinate it, but I like to just to have some prep done. It just makes things a little bit easier. I did end up sprinkling some paprika over top of the chicken just to add some color. And I will also be cutting some cubes of garlic butter and placing it under the skin of the chicken. Once you're done with this, you're just gonna place the chicken in your oven, and I did end up basting my chicken about 3 times. Now I'm gonna make the coleslaw. So here's everything I used. Everything will be down below, including measurements. So here I am just adding the purple onion and the celery and the lime juice in my little blender just to puree all of those together. This recipe is my mother's recipe, so shout out to her for this bomb coleslaw recipe. I did use 1 small lime, but if you're using bigger limes, you can use half of the lime juice instead of the whole lime, but it's up to you. Once your mixture is blended up, it should look something like this. Now I'm just gonna be finely chopping my green sweet pepper as well as my tomato. Now you don't need a lot. I just used a small piece of the green pepper and a small piece of the tomato that I'm gonna be using to make my rice with. And you just wanna thinly chop them. You don't want them to be thick at all. You want them to be nice and thin. Once I was done with that, I did go ahead and grate my carrots. And now I'm just shredding the cabbage. Now this is one way you can do it with the peeler. This way can be a little tricky depending on what type of vegetable peeler you have. But you can also go ahead and with a sharp knife and just finely chop the cabbage like I'm doing here. This way is pretty easy once you have a nice sharp knife. You can cut the cabbage into quarters just so that it's easier to cut. And I didn't use all of the cabbage. I used about 70% of it. but it's entirely up to you what type of carrot to cabbage ratio you like. I like a pretty equal ratio. Now, once I'm done with that, I'm just gonna toss everything around in a big bowl. You do want to put it in a big bowl for mixing. Now I'm just gonna add in my sugar and that puree mixture. I'll also be adding in my spices and a dash of vinegar. And then of course mayo, about 2 tablespoons. And just mixing everything around and tasting and adjusting as needed. You can also add raisins or cranberries or both. Once it's done, I'm just gonna cover it and allow it to sit in the fridge for about an hour or so. Now I'm gonna be making the rice, so I'm just finely chopping all of my veggies, the celery, bell pepper, tomato, and onion. Here I have a lobster tail and some mussels that I was gonna use for something else. So I ended up sauteing them in some garlic butter just to cook them a little bit. But what I was gonna use it for didn't work out, so I'm just gonna be using it in my rice. So I just finely chopped everything. Now for the rice, I added some bacon, just rough chopped it and then kind of broke it into smaller pieces and just placed it in my pot on medium heat so it can fry down. Once the bacon has fried down, I'm going to be adding in the onions and celery and bell pepper and all of that in there just to let those fry down as well. Now my camera did cut out, so after I added all of those veggies, I added the tomato and black beans. Then I let those fry down a little bit, then I added the water and seasoning and also the seafood. Of course, the seafood was added last because like I said, I had already cooked them a little bit, so I didn't want them to be overcooked. If you want a more detailed rice recipe, please check out my corn and rice. I'll have it linked right above. Now once all of my veggies fried down, I did add the black beans and water in there, as well as the mussels and lobster. Now I'm just adding in my rice and mixing it around. And I'm also going to be tasting the pot and adjusting the seasoning a little bit adding a little bit more salt and onion powder. If you're liking this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on your post notifications. Now I'm just gonna let this come to a boil uncovered. Like I mentioned before, I did baste my chicken, so that's what I'm doing here, just placing the juices that it created back over top of it. And if you do have a turkey baster, you can definitely use that. I'm just using a spoon. I did this about 3 times every 20-30 minutes until it was done. Once the rice has come to a boil and you get those rapid bubbles, now it's time to turn the heat on low and let it simmer for about 15 to 20 minutes. Once it's done, it will look like this. It'll be nice and fluffy. If you wanted your rice a little bit darker, you can add some browning in there. I didn't because the black beans added some color. Now I'm just gonna be frying my plantain just in some oil on medium heat. You want to make sure your oil is hot before you put them in there. Pretty self-explanatory, just don't want them to overcook or burn or anything like that. My chicken, when I took it out the oven, you do want to let it rest a bit. And here's everything all done. My chicken was nice and tender, fall off the bone as you can see, and nice and crispy as well. So if you guys enjoyed this video, and if you do decide to try anything out, please let me know down below. Don't forget to subscribe and like and share. And until next time, bye!